Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, a very special 50th anniversary episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this show, I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie, John,
and we're glad to have you with us. Look at us go. Twice in 3 episodes, we're getting everything right. Otherwise, we are very excited to have you here with us. When we started this lovely little side project show of us, we weren't immediately sure what kind of reception or what kind of longevity we were going to end up having with it. So thanks to you listeners, we are all still here to talk about it. I believe we celebrated sometime shortly ago that we had hit 12 months worth of shows, but as we approached our 52 show mark, that would have been approximately 1 show a week for an entire year if we never took a year off. But thankfully we get the opportunity to do that in a lot of cases. We'll be talking a little bit about some news items for the show, as well as various retrospectives and futurespectives, both for the show and for the heresy. But before we get into any of those details, let's go ahead and run some hobby progress, gentlemen. John, what you been up to?
It's been more actual physical pay-for-me work, and not a lot of hobby time, but I took a little time off yesterday, watched a couple good movies, and got some base work done on the armigers. So all of the dead Kriegers have been painted up. All of the dead word bearers have been painted up. All of the broken pieces of masonite that have kind of fallen around the armigers have been painted up. And then all of the statue area has been painted up. And I will say, anyone that is using Mission Models paints, they're very good out of an airbrush. They suck out of a brush. And they activate if you put any GW washes over them. So the paint was completely dry. I'd painted the straps, the leather, and the stuff like that on my dead word bearers and Krieg guys with this mission model stuff. And I painted their cloaks and everything pretty much with this mission model stuff because I've got a lot of it and I'm trying to kind of go through it. And so I started painting it. I was happy with it. And I was like, okay, well, I need to wash these guys to kind of darken them down to match the rest of the flagstones. And I washed them and everything congealed together as a gray amorphous blob. All the paint brown reactivated, all the light gray on the suits reactivated. The only thing that didn't reactivate that was on those models was the Vallejo Mecha dark green that I'd used for their armor. And so I just threw a fit internally and then waited for the stuff to dry and then repainted those parts and then found a different wash. But yeah, if
I've
you
never had
dragging,
an issue with that before with Mission Model.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I for some reason I put Agrax Earthshade on there and I watched the paint come off of the brown straps because the Kriegers they've got normal backpacks, they got a belt, and they've got straps that run on either side of their chest to kind of hold stuff on. And I watched that paint come off the strap and blend into the rest of the area, and then I watched it come off of other stuff. It was just horrible, and all my guys are real washed out. I'd done some of the skull work with some of their stuff, and it was all just every time I'd touch it with Agrax Earthshade, it would just bleh, together. So I would definitely keep an eye out on your paints if you're working through stuff, and if it starts doing that, don't do that. And maybe I guess I need to seal it more often or something because I hadn't sealed between coats. I usually try to seal most of my stuff between layers, but as I'm just painting dead people on bases, I didn't think I'd need to seal between layers on that, but maybe I do with mission models, or maybe I've got an Agrax that's a little more agitated than other things, so something's going on. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All I got was the base stuff done. I'm trying to get at least all of my nights ready for completed for Houston, Warzone Houston in September. But before that, obviously, we've got the Phoenix event in a couple of weeks, and we've got the event I'm running in a week's time from now. And so for the week from now, I want to have at least everything mounted on bases, not necessarily finished. So I'm still going to have armiger skeletons that I got done last show on those bases. And then for Phoenix, I'm hoping to have at least the armor done. Maybe not everything completed, like all weathered and everything, but at least have something together. That's my plan. I will pass it on to Jamie.
So yeah, I did stuff. I had a lot of children in my house, more than my normal brace that I already have. I basically doubled it, so I had like 6 kids in my house most of the weekend. But I stayed up extra late and got stuff done. I even hosted some hobby hangouts. I know Duncan was on one, and as Jack was as well. So we had pretty good. Had a few people on them. It was fun. So I was productive enough that I finished all of the build out for the word bearers for the word bearers army for the Toys for Tots giveaway. So I did let's see, 2 despoiler squads, a destroyer squad, and then I also did like 5 demon, like just Cornate demon guys that Chris Bergeron sent me. It's kind of like a bonus for like the sorcerer or the librarian summoning guys. And then today, after finishing up on all that and cleaning up my workbench so I could start working on other stuff, started sitting down going through what I needed for the other Toys for Tots army with the white scars and what I had, and tried to finish up the list. I posted that on our Discord channel. If anybody wants to go on there, I think it may be in the general section if I'm not mistaken, because it was kind of weird how I had to post it. But if you all have any comments or suggestions, please go ahead and give them to us so I can finish it up and figure out what all I need to ask or try and get people to send in to finish up the army. I know one thing I'm going to need is Contemptor Dreadnoughts. So if anybody's willing to donate 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts, that's what I need right now the most. So
I'll double check my stuff, but I may have you covered.
Sweet. But it's the White Scars list that will have, amazingly enough, jet bikes in it. It also will have a lot of troops. And I have added in some suicide speeders. And there's some Terminators, Contemptor Dreadnoughts. There's a Librarian, or what is a Stormcaller, I guess that's what they call it. It's a fairly well-rounded list. A little bit of everything. But it's a little light on vehicles, so other than the land, I think there's a Land Raider and a Rhino, but that's it, other than the speeders. So, anyways, pretty productive week, I'd say, for me. But anyways, I will hand it off to Duggan.
Well, let me see here. I've had a somewhat productive week. I'm not quite certain how productive, but definitely some. I got 10 inductee built. I got their base paint down. I got their Zenithal down. And I did some more of the weathering on the Blood Angels. And that's it. I did a lot of overtime this past week, so my hobby time and hobby stuff was kind of limited. But there wasn't a lot. But there we go. And I did get a chance to hang out in the hobby hangout with Jamie and Jack and some others. Beyond that, I'll go ahead and kick it over to Jack. Jack, what did you do this week?
Work again, struck again. So I have some more detailing done on the Imperial Fist Terminators. And I fixed a Thunderhawk that somehow, because of the effect of nobody in this house, somehow managed to hit the ground. And I'm not blaming anybody. I don't want to start a fight, but somehow to hit the ground.
It had an unexpected landing.
Unexpected landing. And it was not me.
How catastrophic was the landing?
It's
heinous turbulence.
But that was a lot of drilling and pinning to get it back to where it needed to be. What about you, Jacob? What all you got done, dog?
I have not had a whole lot of heresy news to report. Been chipping away on some of our White Scar episodes that we've had come to light. And I've also been, and I think this is the episode to talk about it, it's not quite ready, but it should be by the time this episode is live. I have been working on putting together a Patreon for us. We've talked about this off and on for a long time. This is something that we wanted to kind of kick off around Adepticon when we were looking at that 1-year anniversary. And unfortunately, owing to some circumstances in my life at the time, that did not not come together. But we do have some exciting news to report with our Patreon, and that is the fact that we have some official sponsorships. I think our first two that we've partnered with for a giveaway, that's right, a giveaway. Flying Phoenix Games and Elric's Hobbies have partnered with us for this first giveaway. And if I'm correct in my understanding, this giveaway is a box of the Age of Darkness, so that's got the Beaky Marines, the Spartan, Contemptor, Cataphracti Terminators, and Rulebook. And Elric's, I believe, brought some bases to play. Is that right?
That is. Elric's is giving us a complete set of the hobby bases for the Age of Darkness box. And the Flying Phoenix Flying Phoenix gave us the complete box for the Age of Darkness box set. So, yeah, quite a lot of stuff.
Extremely cool. So, at this time, if you're listening, if you drop a comment on this episode, I believe we are talking the linked posts on Facebook. We will have a giveaway channel set up in Discord. If you comment on our YouTube channel, or I believe also we're doing our Instagram, is that correct? If you comment the word Beaky in any of those channels, for each channel you comment in, you will have an entry for this giveaway. So long as you are in the continental United States, and as long as we are able to get a hold of you through that account from ours, we will be looking forward to get the Age of Darkness box and a set of deluxe bases sent your way. We're going to go ahead and do the drawing for that giveaway on episode 53. So that does give you a little bit of time. If you're catching this episode late and episode 53 has not aired yet, you've got a really, really great chance of being able to get in and get listed for that. Once again, it is anyone in the continental United States, and you get one entry for each of the 4 social channels that we're talking here: Discord, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where you comment the word Beaky. This is the first of several giveaways, but this is by far the one that we were most excited to be able to kind of use as a headliner here for a series of giveaways, kind of celebrating this milestone. Likewise, I believe, if you've been following those social channels, we have been proud to announce that we have an official sponsor. As of this time, I believe Elric's Hobbies has decided to be our official sponsor for the show. We're super excited to see that, and gentlemen, if I'm right, do we have a discount code for, is it 10% off with Elric's? Did I understand that correctly? What's
yes, indeed.
That code looking like?
So if you go to their website, if you use the special code HeresyABB, you get 10% off of anything resin and basing accessories.
Excellent. It's very, very cool. Definitely exciting to be able to have that with us at this point. And sort of with those news notes out of the way, I believe the only other thing that we have of note is the Legions Astartes packs that are coming out for, is it Legions Imperialis, Heresy Epic, or definitely not Heresy Epic. And I believe those include Contemptors, Leviathans, Tarantulas, and Rapiers. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Four of each in the box.
Yeah, 4 of each in the box, and we're under the understanding, am I right, John, that that's meaning we're expecting mixed box releases?
Yeah, old man yells at cloud, but this is kind of one of the things that's a little weird to me, is that we're getting dreadnoughts and rapiers in one box. The way the article made it sound, a lot of these articles make it sound like it's going to work on, the system is going to work very close to original Epic. If anyone did play original Epic or has seen videos about it, a lot of your army building was done on a card-based system where you would start out with, HQ slot, and that could lead you into a troop slot. Troop slot would lead you into 2 or 3 of the other slots that you could take. So the question is going to be, because this box is called a support box, are you going to be limited to only these types of things on a support squad, or are you going to be limited to these specific numbers of things? So, if I want to build, the thing I kind of saw weird with this is the fact that it's half contemptors and leviathans, and then the last third is obviously the rapiers and tarantulas. So if I want to do an all artillery company, I'm obviously going to want rapiers and tarantulas over dreadnoughts. The question is, are those two kind of occupying the same space? Are they different spaces? A lot of it's still up in the air as far as how this stuff can be taken. It's just a little weird that this is the box mentality and how these are set up. I don't want, we're throwing land or jet bikes in with the command squad, so that way if you want to run a jet bike army, you got to buy 14 command squad boxes. That's definitely the mentality I don't want to go down, and we've all started our hobbies back when that was kind of the GW mentality. It was the, hey, if you want a missile launcher on your dreadnought, you bought the dreadnought, then you bought a missile launcher, and then you bought this, and you bought that. Or if you wanted plasma guns in your tactical squad, you bought a tactical squad box, then you bought a plasma gun blister, and you had to combine them or get extra figures that way. So I hope we're not going back in time to that. I hope we're staying with the GW of buy this box, run this box, but we'll see what happens. Questions, comments?
No, I'm with you there.
Yep.
I ultimately it might be a little more palatable if overall the cost on the boxes is more manageable. But I definitely know that some of us have kind of been burned over Games Workshop's pricing models before, so I don't want to lean too deep down that rabbit hole.
I'm going to hazard a guess that they're trying to hit a price point on each one of the boxes. So if it was just all, like 4 Contemptors or 4 Leviathans per box or whatever, it'd either be extraordinarily expensive for that, or they'd be under what they're, the price point they're wanting to sell it for. So,
Yeah, and I realize that if you do a Contemptor box and a Leviathan box and a Rapier box, you're ending up with so many SKUs. And that was GW's kind of complaint back when they made Forge World downsize so much. And we also know that GW has issues keeping stuff in production and things like that. So, I'm not knocking them for trying to combine boxes into things. It's just, if I'm trying to field certain size armies and things like that, I want to be able to field that as I choose to. Obviously, with the size of my army right now, I'm probably just better off trying to find base reduction sizes for all the stuff I've already got.
If I had to guess it, they're basically put everything on one sprue, so you're probably getting 2 sprues in that box. So like the starter box, you'll probably get 1 sprue of that, and then like 1 sprue of the troops and the assault guys, and then so on and so on.
Yep.
So it's like a space and I guess plastic mold management thing, but whatever.
One thing I did kind of notice is if you look at the actual the rapier platforms, they look different. Sculpt-wise.
Tarantulas do too. The tarantulas are really smooth looking.
Yeah. It'd be really awesome if we got those in normal heresy size.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this means we're getting new rapiers, but I definitely would not complain if we did.
Did you see the other article that talked about using old Epic models in new Epic?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so they had an article that showed 6mm Epic alongside new fancy 8 or 10mm Epic. And then they said that the reason that they kind of changed sizes was so that they could keep more consistency between sizes, where old Epic Rhinos were slightly larger than 2 Marines, and Thunderhawks started out the size of Rhinos and ended up almost as big as Warlord Titans. So they brought up the fact that you could use old Epic models in new Epic game as long as they had the right bases. And Epic Armageddon used 25mm rounds. So there is the ability for people to take Epic Armageddon, which some people consider the best Epic out there. I sadly joined just in time to buy Epic rules, and then the game was already dead before I could play a game. So it'll be interesting to see, how many people come out of the woodwork to play old Epic or old models with new Epic. I know that's kind of what I was talking about last episode. I'm probably going to have a mix between the two scales.
I'm still not really quite certain what I'm going to do, but we'll see.
Just to ask for my own reckoning, do we have even like a street date for rules for Legions Imperialis?
Nope.
No.
Well, they did kind of confirm terrain though. Terrain on the is coming out with the release.
I thought they showed the
So
boxes of the terrain.
Well, that's
yeah,
pretty
and then
alright.
there's a picture of new tiles in that article as well. So some people are speculating that that's going to be a Realm of Battleboard-esque system for Epic in plastic, because they've been doing it for Necromunda, and the Necromunda ones are so popular they sell out on every web store within 5 minutes of going up. And I can't see Epic ones selling any slower.
So I do wonder if hopefully that means that there's a chance that they will have some manner of a starter box that will get you a couple titans, some starty stuff, and some terrain with a rulebook, very Age of Darkness starter box style. Because I feel like even their 40k starters have been going that way, a little bit of terrain in the box with the rulebook. Or at least they were while they were still doing physical rulebooks. I think 10th has finally eschewed that.
Well, but the 10th they changed it. They had the Leviathan box, which I guess everybody thought was going to be the starter box. It's not. It was like a limited box where they actually have now like 2 or 3 starter boxes that do have basic terrain in them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I was hoping they were going to do something like that for Heresy for Christmas this past year for 22, have some type of smaller box like they just did for 10th, but maybe that's kind of their new mentality going forward. Yeah, Jacob, the box they showed is nice, but it's almost too big for one person. It's kind of like that master box that they did for Titanicus that came out that everyone got because they were like, "Oh, this is our starter box." And in reality, they marketed it that way, but it was really better as almost getting 1.5 people into the game.
The kind of thing where if you have 3 people, you can buy 2 boxes and get everybody relatively fleshed out. Or if 2 people buy, you can get a little more build diversity between the 2 forces.
Yep. Yeah, the box is like 180 Marines, 180 guard, and then 2 Warhounds. And some people are wondering because in old Epic, that's a fairly big force. And so the question is, is that going to be 2 forces? Is that going to be 1.5 forces? What are we doing?
I would be surprised if it's 2 fully capable forces for anything bigger than the smallest size advertised game. And I say that because Games Workshop has really tried to push the combat patrol boxes for 40k as a, hey, if you don't know if you want to get your whole foot in the door with Heresy, here's these combat patrol boxes. You can buy them. You can play these as a relatively complete and functional army. And then you can decide where you want to go from there.
Yeah, with ZM coming out, I'm hoping that Heresy gets more of that push into like maybe ZM boxes that could be a combat patrol size. But with GW wanting to do things that are super thematic, you'd almost need plastic breachers instead of just a normal Heresy army. But they could still do it. It would be nice if they did.
And I think this kind of touches on something that we've tiptoed around. We may have said in the first episode where Legions Imperialis got spoiled. I don't know if any of us are completely happy. I would say none of us are unhappy, or at least not unhappy enough that like we're not playing, current circumstances for myself notwithstanding. None of us are so unhappy with the state of the game that like we're picking up and leaving. We want more, obviously, but we definitely feel a little bit like Legion Imperialis has kind of come in and taken our lunch, especially with them getting in epic
Heresy
scale
Thursday.
A couple kits before we see them in fully functional GW plastic for Heresy.
Yeah, and I've seen a few videos and articles going like, why does Heresy need more? And honestly, we're in a good kind of starting position for being a year out. The reason that we want more infantry isn't just because more infantry is better for the game. It's because these legions are so specific on things that they want to build and things that are better for them. Yes, everyone can do everything. Iron Warriors can definitely have a jet bike army, or Ultramarines can have an assaulty force. But if you want to build the army that you read in the book, it's really hard to do that for at least 5 of the legions right now, because we're lacking those specific infantry models and things in plastic. Now, obviously, the despoiler upgrades just dropped. We've talked about those before, and they're a band-aid at best. But obviously, if you had assault marines in plastic right now, it would be in a better world.
Just to see if I've kind of got my finger on the pulse reasonably accurately, you would say that the biggest plastic releases that you're asking for would be probably assault marines, breachers, and then if I looked for 1 to 2 more, I would say the follow-ups would be outriders, and especially now that we've seen them in the epic scale, rapiers. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think those would be a good start. Yeah, and I think you could almost do most of that with 1 or 2 boxes. You could make, and this kind of goes back to my orc mentality was, I was surprised when the orcs came out and they got a new buggy, and then 6 months later they got a new thud gun. Like, you could have combined those two into things. And with the way the marine vehicles are fairly straightforward and combined, you could build tracked tracked mono wheel bikes but on a tread out of a half a rapier if you built the sprue right. Just recycling parts.
Would allow you. I think that's fair. I do wonder, though, has Games Workshop more significantly moved away from multi-kits in the last 3 to 5 years?
No.
Okay.
You're getting, and I'm not playing like 40K, but I kind of keep up on some of their discussions. So the 10th edition right before 10th edition dropped, you had those weird-looking missile launcher marines. They came with the weird-looking missile launchers and then 2 other types of missiles, so you could kind of swap between those depending on how you built the kit. And then they seem to kind of keep those 1 box makes 2 unit mentality on things like that. So it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to kind of keep that together for vehicles and the like going forward. But I'm just thinking of weird ways that you could try to combine things like that. And considering, I did work in a GW environment, friend of the game store for 5 years, kind of seeing the way people spent money and the way GW had marketed back then, although this was the apocalypse heyday as we all knew it.
The age of awesome deals.
Yeah, they've definitely changed the way they ran business.
So
plastic, it's not quite the same company, but
go ahead.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Plastic kits notwithstanding, I know that we've gotten Siege of Cthonia this year, and that marked, depending on how you want to look at it or measure it, some 9 to 12 months after the release of the Age of Darkness box. And the 6 months or so since Siege of Cthonia, that's not fair. The 3 to 4 months since Siege of Cthonia have been pretty slow. We've had a drip feed of a couple different character sculpts, which have been totally fine. But I think, understandably, those don't garner the same level of interest that the plastic kit releases were. And avoiding the beat the drum of, hey, you promised plastic infantry, where's it at? What's our right number for how many publications we would like to see annually for Heresy? Keeping in mind that we took about 10 years to get the last slate of books. Are we going to be okay at 1 a year? Do we feel like we need to move to 2 a year in order to keep players' attention? I think Jamie floated it, or not Jamie, maybe Ned floated it last episode where anytime he was speaking with a local or somebody who was in pursuit of a project, they were like, well, I feel like I need to play Sons of Horus or Imperial Fists because they're the only things getting anything for the foreseeable future.
No, Ned floated that, but I have a lot of locals that have said the same thing. They had been working on their own armies and recent, and then they're just kind of getting a little depressed that nothing is getting anything really new, shiny special, other than the Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist, so they're all kind of like, well, I guess one of my next army is going to be one of those.
Michael, who's been on the show a lot, he plays salamanders, and he really hasn't gotten anything.
Yeah.
I do think that we have some underappreciated legions. I could pretty easily point to, maybe less so with their current slate of rules, Iron Hands. But with regard to their model offerings, Raven Guard and Iron Warriors are basically completely lacking. Go ahead.
Raven Guard have a couple special units, whereas
Raven Guard have their 2 units with the Mordathan and the Furies, but they have no named characters.
Right.
Iron Warriors have the Siege Tyrants and the Iron Circle, and then they've got Perturabo, and that's all they've got as well.
You used to have Narek Draeger.
Yep. And Narek Draeger's been moved to a legacy because he was a convention-only model.
Yep.
We have Iron Hands, who they have their Gorgons and their Medusan Immortals, but they even lost Autek Moore. They just have the Iron Father. So there's a number of legions out there. I think Salamanders might be in that boat too, where they've got Vulcan, Fire Drakes, and Pyroclasts, but their named characters just kind of poof up in smoke because they never got sculpts. And
one of their characters was a named Dreadnought, so
right. But you get my
I
idea
get
here that even if and I really do want to push back on this, especially in the most positive way possible. I wholly believe that if you look at Siege of Chthonia and all you see is Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus, I think you are missing the forest for the trees. I think that for my money, the Inducti are more important than either character that the Sons of Horus or the Imperial Fists got, and I generally believe that the tank commanders, the generic ones, are relatively every bit as playable as the Legion-specific versions of those characters. And that's to say nothing of the Zone Mortalis rules are in there, because I do understand that is a variant way to play that even though most of us have done it at some point, or have even, picked up a couple oddball units here and there to foster that, we're possibly in the minority there, in, the niche of the niche, as we've said.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Back when they were... Oh, thank you. Generally, I thought when they were releasing quote-unquote black books from Forge World, wasn't it about one a year, if I'm not mistaken? Sometimes it would go a year and a half, right?
That's why I specified it took about 10 years to get the current slate of black books. We did take some deviations in there. We took 1 year to get the Age of Darkness core books, and we probably took 1 year at least once, if not twice, to get some red books and then the updates to them. And I guess it was book 9 we stopped on, not book 10, if I'm right.
Right.
Book 9 took
a long time.
Over a year in between book 8 and 9, and then I know we got the Age of Darkness core book in between 7 and 8. And that kind of drug things out.
But I think comparing these to the Siege of Chthonia to a black book, I think is a depression of a black book. Those black books they were limited to about the same number of legions, but usually covered a lot more as far as setting things up. Now, admittedly, a lot of that was trying to make sure that we got rules for all 20. But even the recap books, book 3 kind of recapped a couple of the legions that had already been out. Book 5 recapped Word Bearers. Book 9 recapped Night Lords and introduced the Dark Angels. Even those recap books had about, I want to say, a unit or two for those existing legions, plus having 1 or 2 generic units per book for everybody else. So in this instance, we got 2 generic units, one of them being a type of tank commander, one of them being the inductee, or 2 different types of tank commander, still a type of model. And then the specific legions themselves got a character and a special tank commander. So as far as like substance goes, comparing it to a black book, they're obviously lacking in the lore perspective, but they all are also lacking in some of the rules perspective.
Technically speaking, we got 18 new units, plus the tank commanders, plus the two named.
Yeah.
So
technically speaking,
I see where John's
devil's
coming from. That yes, we did get more complete pictures or deeper dives on specified legions than what we got with Siege of Cathonia. I'm not denying that. I will counter, though, with how much time did we waste across the black and the red books of having to continually re-release the Word Bearers special rules because we never nailed them down.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the custode points updates that were done in PDF as well as a book update, and then had to be PDF'd again.
Yeah, we you're definitely right that we did do custodes the same way ish as what we did word bearers. The amount of FAQs that Thousand Suns and Space Wolves had to take, the fact that we heard about Dark Mechanicum from book 6 onward and it never manifested. So it's definitely one of those, dare I say, like, trust but verify kind of things. When I see Games Workshop saying, hey, we promise there's a mystery plastic army that's coming out at some point. And of course, we're all going, where's the mystery plastic infantry that you promised us for Astartes, especially for what you're charging for, like, the despoiler kit?
But to go back to answer your original question, Jacob, before we get so sidetracked, for the health community, for the number of releases that we need a year, because of how short our attention span are as a community and how many different things that are coming out that can vie for our attention, we probably need at least one good release a quarter. Not a kit, but like a book. Or
wow.
So, a quarter, sir?
I'm just being serious. Like, there's so much stuff that would that drags our attention away. As a community, as a society, for the health of the game system, it has to be once a quarter a good release.
Cards on the table. I really don't know that that's realistic. I don't know that they've got the bandwidth for that.
It's not. I'm not saying it is.
I don't think he's out of line if you listen. Like, it's not like I don't think he's saying we need a whole book every quarter. I'm thinking he says we need, like he said, a major release. Like, you could do a book in the first quarter, an infantry unit or army or something big in the second quarter. Third quarter you go back to book. Fourth quarter you have another army or big infantry kit release. I don't think we need 4 books, but I think we need 4 heavy releases a year.
I definitely know that the post-Adepticon lull has settled in pretty significantly with my local play group, where it's just like, cool, we got Siege of Cathonia. Some people are trying lists with Inducti, not everybody, but it's the fact of the matter where once there's no new releases coming out, once there's nothing to cause people to engage in new forms of the hobby, you're putting a whole lot of players in the position that it's like, oh, I watched as over the course of 9-ish months, we finished our X-Bat units, we got all these legacy PDFs, we finished getting all the rules for all the armies into the Heresy, and now, like a wet fart, all you have to talk about, quote unquote, is Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus. I think that it's better than that, but I also think we're still, as evidenced by the character releases, where we got the Esoterist and now the Librarian and the Champion, we're having to, like, backtrack through either console models that never existed in the Heresy style, or models which may have existed in the Heresy style, but are now so old that those models are, like, hitting their end of life, and they're getting retired in favor of these new sculpts. And I think generally the one I could point to with that is the Champion, because we had at least one Champion sculpt previously, and that's been put out to pasture by
We had,
the
we
latest.
I think we had 2 or 3 because we had those like Mark II Command Squad box. We had a Mark III Champion and Standard, and a
Yeah, it
Mark IV
was.
Champion
Yeah,
Standard.
I was for sure remembering the guy like drawing the blade.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yes, you did have the Praetor slash Centurion models where the guy's like propped up on his sword, similar to how the current champion is looking, as well as the not quite Tartaros, not quite Cataphracti, make of it what you will armor that we got with the guy who was very, very spread armed in his pose. But I don't disagree that I would love to see at least a quarterly release. I don't know if it's a reality. I would love to, for the health and sake of the game, I would love to see those PDF only armies, which right now are militia and demons. I would love to see them get actual hardback rules, especially because and I say it every other show at least probably, I continue to be of the mindset that the game is at the healthiest with core publications.
Personally, I would like to see a book drop once a year. I don't mean like, I mean a Siege of Cathonia size book dropping once a year. I think would be good for the community. I'm kind of with Jack and with John in that we need to have stuff coming out every quarter. That doesn't mean we have to have a book every quarter, although that'd be seriously love. But if we got like, say, a campaign packet or a full across the board FAQ drop, or here's some Mark II plastic, anything we could get that would actually improve the available ranges, anything, I think would be good for the community as a whole. But engaging with the community in releasing a FAQ that we desperately need, and releasing like campaign packs to follow some of the stuff that went on in the Heresy, because the Heresy itself went on for what, 9 years, 7 years,
7 years.
Okay, so it went on somewhere right around there, and there was of course stuff going on after it and a little bit of stuff going on before it. But if they released like, hey, we came up with this 50-page, 25-page background thing, 2-page of random character from this legion and this legion, and something. Here you go. Here's a campaign of what forces were there, and they drop that every couple months. I think that would be awesome. I think that would get a lot more people engaged with the Heresy as a whole. It would help expand the background. I know their big focus right now is 40K with 10th edition having dropped, but I think doing that would definitely get a lot of positive feedback from the community.
Especially because they just killed a specialist game.
What they just killed?
Aeronautica.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Aeronautica, all the Xenos stuff got shuffled off.
Same thing with like, didn't I know Aeronautica, but what about Titanicus? Isn't it kind of
Yeah, it's kind of entered a holding pattern. But yeah, Aeronautica, they specifically said that the models are discontinued for the foreseeable future, that the only thing that they may release is updates using, they said Heresy stuff, so it sounds like they're basically going to take whenever something comes out in Heresy, it'll get pushed to Aeronautica as well if it's an aircraft.
Allegedly, they did indicate that the new Titan weapons that we're seeing with Epic, they did say those are going to be updated or compatible with Titanicus, but
like that's not like, I mean, is that going to be like the way it's all the Titanicus stuff is released now? Is it just going to be part of the new Epic, or that's what I'm saying? It's not like a standalone anymore.
Yeah, that'll be my guess, is that you're not going to get anything branded Titanicus or Aeronautica anymore. In fact, all of the Marine stuff is just gone from the digital store and storefronts entirely. They've just poofed off. So they're probably just reboxing everything right now for Epic / Aeronautica, or however they're going to redo them. So the question's going to be, how are they going to split up this workload? If they started doing double campaign books like they did back in, remember the Tau book? for Forge World had Epic, BFG, and 40K rules for Tau.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't mind necessarily us getting a book or two like that a quarter or a year. It would definitely breathe some life back into everything going on.
That Tau book, the Forge World Tau book, that thing was huge. That was like one of the largest books they put out. Since I haven't gone, I'm going to be different. I'm going to say I think they need to do 2 books a year, like either a fall, spring, or a summer, winter. And if they can't get 2 books out, they need to do 1 book a year, as with everybody else says, with like, sizable quarterly facts and maybe like a campaign packet or something like that. But I'd really like to see 2 books a year and try and work through and see if they can get some of the unloved legions some more love to them. I'm not saying that the book that we just, Sithonia that we just got didn't have a lot in it. I mean, it had stuff in it. It just didn't feel like it because they were all, it's basically the same unit, or not, most people say it was the same unit, basically just changed for each one of the legions, opposed to like a different tank or a different, thing that's available to all the different legions.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to make new models for new units. They could go back to what they did, which is, make rules for conversions that we can build.
Right. No, I agree. And I just think it would, if they could do two like every other quarter, like semi-annual or whatever, I think that would be good. But knowing just from what we've seen from GW and Forge World, and that would really be pushing it. And I'm willing to bet there'd be also a lot of typos, but whatever.
I kind of want to see GW sit there and go, hey, these are the novels. This novel kind of tied into everything this way. Here is a campaign book tied around those novels.
Kind of like what they did with the book 9, which was mainly Dark Angels and Night Lords.
The Siege of Thramis. Or the
Thramis Crusade. Yeah. I mean, so that tied in with most of those books, like the Night Lords and the Dark Angel ones. So, do something like that. Tie them into your books that you already have out, and say, like, this is part of, whatever crusade or whatever part of the crusade, and these two or 3 legions are involved in it, or something like that.
Or even do kind of an update of the original Black Books and say, hey, here's a collected, this is the lore from all these books.
Yeah.
These are updated campaigns that you could have. I mean, they could really do the campaign from each of the Black Books every other month. Yeah. Updated for the modern edition, and with accumulated one specific special mission for each of those campaigns. And that would be awesome. That would bring them in line with the modern 40, with the current 30K, and it would, I think, cause people to seek out more of the lore. Yeah. I think it would actually engage more with the player base and bring other people in, because they would see, hey, while this campaign's over here, we have multiple different campaigns that have all been released this way. I think it'd be something cool and neat that would actually work well for everything. Just my opinion again.
Let's see if I can read the room here and come up with something that would reasonably please all of us. If we act like you have a quarterly schedule, and this isn't saying that's where you should be for Heresy, but that's at least where they've put us right now, based on that timeline they published of here's what GW's doing quarterly, here's what Forge World's doing quarterly. If we could, one of those 4 slots, get one, let's call it high demand release of something that's not out yet, and one net new product, something that's not in the Heresy yet. Because we know that they got to keep doing net new stuff to drive sales, because they know that we are used to converting stuff, and we will continue to do so. So if you got one in demand plastic, plus one net new plastic with PDF rules, that could be one slot. Or you could split those up if you have to, but I'm still hoping to hit 3 other things plus that. Let's talk one publication. I'm hoping that ultimately that publication is relatively divorced from those releases, because then that leaves the ability to drip feed in characters and Legion specific Greebles in that campaign release to flesh out those legions, especially if, like we just talked about, there's a significant opportunity here to do a snapshot recap of some of the stuff that happened back at Istvan and give us our Iron Hands Praetors, Raven Guard Praetors, and Iron Warrior Praetors, and do one named character for each of those legions and get a really good content run out of that book. And it would even let you touch on, man, you could throw salamanders in there, you could, however you want to do it, because obviously, like, Emperor's Children are up to 3 or 4 named characters now, and for there to be some legions that don't have any, bummer. So there's option 2, or slot 2. Slot 3, an FAQ. I would love to see the FAQ be able to follow the book, but it doesn't have to. The idea being that even if we saw the FAQs get updated once a year, I understand that the current ones are only 7-ish months old, if I'm right. I think it was December of last year that they got updated or touched last. Just once a year, the same treatment you gave 40K with chapter approved. If you got to touch those FAQs only once a year, I wish it was more often, but I will meet you there. And then slot 4, I would really love to see a net new army. And that is probably where I'm going to end up asking too much in here. But I'm pretty confident that our forthcoming plastic army, especially because theoretically the design work's already done for them, is going to be Solar Ox. But other things you get to drop in this net new army slot are Dark Mechanicum and our demons. And maybe, hopefully, one day, Militia, or at least, like, move Militia to a hardback book so that that can be a more codified army.
I would say, just with the stuff that we've seen in the Epic that's coming out or whatever, that I would say the Milita or Solar Ox, whatever you want to call them, it seems very likely that they're going to be the new army
it's almost certainly going to be Solar Ox, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is the last full range army product that Forge World is left on the hook for. And if they really want to push Forge World back into the box of you aren't responsible for armies, you're responsible for bits and one-off character sculpts, and even then it seems like most of the one-off character sculpts that aren't for Heresy, I guess maybe the Old World, those sculpts might go to Forge World, who knows? Seems like everything else has gone plastic. So I would love, again, just to kind of nail that down, one set of plastic releases for a old in-demand unit and a net new unit. I would love to see one new army a year. I would love to see one book, and I would love to see the FAQs get touched once a year. And I think if we got about that pace, I'd be pretty happy. What I think it's ultimately going to slide to is that those 4 slots are going to go on a 6 month rotation, a 6 season, an 18-month rotation. And that's going to kind of bum me out. It's not going to be the end of the world, but I think ultimately I will end up disappointed because Heresy will see slower releases under Games Workshop than what we did under Forge World. Obviously, the hope is that we don't. The hope is that we don't get there, and that we don't have to have that. You would like to hope that things could be better, but who knows?
And it's funny because we're actually asking for less than Necromunda is currently getting. Necromunda, every time they drop a new update, every gang gets a new release, and then you get a new rule book, cards, whatever other stuff that goes with that, terrain. It seems like every time there's an update, Necromunda gets a crap ton of releases, and it's one of my friends is like, man, we keep buying all this stuff. We got to do something with it. It's just like there's so much Necromunda releases coming out all the time. So we're not even asking for that much, really, with everything that we've said today.
But aren't the Necromunda gang books or the books like a lot smaller than like a normal heresy book? Aren't they about like 100 pages or so?
No, the normal the book ofs are about the size of Chthonia.
Okay.
The gang books themselves. Each gang book has stuff that everyone can use as far as like selling things and buying things. And then they've recently started doing campaign books where there's a little bit of models and stuff, but it's a lot more fluff based, where everyone can kind of participate in this evolving Game of Thrones style thing going on. But those books are a little bit smaller than Siege of Chthonia, mainly because the majority of them is fluff.
Okay.
And there's just a few missions that go along with that campaign.
And I'll be honest, if most of our books are actual fluff for the background, or contain a majority of fluff for the background, I'm not going to complain about that at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd be okay with that. Maybe add a couple like campaign missions or something like that.
Yeah, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at it here. If I try to take that information and try to cope with like us still being quote unquote on a hangover from the fact that we got a disproportionately large amount of releases in the first 12 months. Let's look at the roadmap ahead. Autumn, it says we're getting a Primarch, more Lords of War, a plastic dreadnought of some variety, which we all believe is the Jaredeo, and an Armor Mark update. We talked about that Armor Mark update being the Mark II, Mark III plastic, whatever that's going to be. Probably Mark II, based on what we were seeing, because the Mark III still seems to be in production. More Lords of War. I'm wondering, and we've mused before, that that's going to be the Astartes Fellblade chassis or whatever.
It would have to be. I mean, like...
and then the Primarch... So we've got all the Primarchs, so this is either Khan on bike, or, given that our teaser was someone transformed by the heresy, probably...
Like an Ascended or a Demonic Primarch.
I'm wondering if we're going to see Ascendant Fulgrim here, or Ascendant Lorgar.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
does Lorgar still have the Lorgar Transfixed upgrade?
No.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Hold on.
Also, you could check and see if Magnus does as well. I think Magnus has a Super Saiyan form.
Magnus no longer does, I don't believe. I'll double check both of them while I'm here.
I'm already on the Emperor's Children one. Hold on.
I know for sure Fulgrim does not have one in his book.
Well, I thought he had the one for the sword, for like the lair sword or whatever. But it wasn't like fully
Magnus does not have Super Saiyan Magnus. They did away with that. Lorgar does have Lorgar Transfigured. Technically speaking, it's a very small upgrade that doesn't come with any stat bumps, but I could see them absolutely redoing the Lorgar model and doing him as Lorgar Transfigured.
Yeah, because that's what they basically did for Horus.
And given that they seem to be relegating the transformation into Demon Primarch for Magnus, Ahriman, and Mortarion to the plastic fully Ascendant models, I'd almost bet we won't see Fulgrim as Snake Fulgrim, or at least not in the immediate term.
I think that will end up being a GW plastic for like 40k versus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're not going to see heresy rules for that. And so yeah, that kind of leaves us just Lorgar Transfigured, unless they pulled the old switcheroo on us and they do decide to do Khan on bike, because we do still have rules for that. But
yep,
we just don't have the bike for him.
We just don't have bike.
And they specifically said that they weren't, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. Because GW has pulled that type of stuff in the past when they're asked at conventions, "Are you working on this?" Like, "Oh no, not at all."
No.
And that takes us
We're
to
not working on it yet.
winter, where we get the Assault Squad kit and the Mystery Army release, which we believe, oh yeah, they'll do Solar Ox in time for Christmas. That's what we're going to end up looking at there.
I think that'd be the perfect time for it to drop.
And then sometime in spring, so probably just before their fiscal year ends, we'll get the Command/Vet Squad, which will include melee weapons. That's where you're going to get your Thunderhammer bits and all that goodness. Yup. Okay. So, outside of not seeing any rule books in this roadmap, it seems like ultimately our wants and our predictions may not be too far off. It just kind of feels like we're in a hangover. We're in a little bit of a slump after Cathonia.
It also wouldn't surprise me if we get some surprises along the way, like some of the remaining Sarkarian tank turret variants. So
we will not be getting, I don't think, Plastic Fellblade yet. Because more Lords of War, they could absolutely just be throwing the Knight chassis in there for the autumn release.
Well, no. I'm not saying more Lords of War. I'm saying like the Gatlin Blaster, the Arquois, and the Plasma.
Oh yeah, the Plasma, because that's been redesigned for the Heresy Epic model. I will put a soft bet out. I wonder if we'll end up seeing the Primarch, unless we've heard definitively that they are or aren't showing anything off at Gen Con. I wonder if we'll see the Primarch shown off at Gen Con.
Do they usually have a big thing at Gen Con?
They haven't, and I did float that the last time they've used LVO and Adepticon as model releases. And so we totally may not get anything for Adepticon. They may still be too busy on trying to focus on 10th edition and selling Leviathan at the booth. Totally possible. But you get where that is an option for if you want a high-profile way to show off that you are continuing to produce the highest quality miniatures out there. To my knowledge, that's part of why they've been redoing some of the Primarchs, is because we saw that some of these tournament winning painters were going to other vendors and were painting their flagship models instead of Games Workshop's flagship models in painting competitions. And unless they're gonna just ride out on the Lion being their showpiece model for this year, I would bet we're going to see Lorgar Transfixed show up in time that someone could consider doing him as a, like, Crystal Brush or Golden Demon for Adepticon or Warhammer Fest next year. I'd almost bet you'll see that show up in enough time for that.
And that would tie off. That would be the last one they need too, wouldn't it? Of the 4 that go full demon.
Yeah, if we assume that Fulgrim's going to be a plastic, yeah. Because Kurz is dead in 40k, and Perturabo is only nebulously just like, oh yeah, he's a demon prince. Well, what does he look like? He looks like a demon prince. Like, they haven't even attempted to talk about...
Right, and I thought he was like...
himself.
Wasn't he also, like, undivided, too?
Yeah, he's a super obliterator, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been some art that's been put out about him, but nothing that really shows him off all that well. I know someone was talking when they released that new demon thing that recently came out for 40k. I know some people were talking about how they thought that might be a new Perturabo model, but obviously not.
It's a bit too demony for him, too.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it looked cool. Don't get me wrong, I definitely dug the way it looked, but wasn't quite Perturabo enough.
Man, now I want to see somebody kit bash the official Perturabo sculpt with who's the new demon prince that we got, who's like the dark mech demon prince.
The one I just mentioned.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking the demon assassin for some reason, not the dark mech prince. Yeah, my bad.
Gotcha.
I was like, how would anybody have thought the... And it's like, oh, because nobody thought that, because you're a dum-dum.
Because some people have kit bashed Marathi, Snake Marathi into Fulgrim a lot. I've seen those all over the place.
Yep. Vashtor is who we're thinking. Who's the Meccano demon prince.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I mean, 40K they seem like they do about every 2 years. They do one of those like those campaign Arc of Omen style thingies. So it's about every 2-3 years they do that. So
let's see here. We got Demon Magnus, and then we got Bobby, and then we got Mortarion, and then we got the and then we got Angron, and then we got the Lion. So I guess there hasn't been a super consistent pattern, because I was about to be like, what's your bet? Do we finish getting Demon Fulgrim before we see our next Loyalist in plastic? But
yeah, I thought we were going to as well, because there was a lot of fluff that mentioned creepy snake critter with weird musk and things like that in some of the fluff leading up to the Arcs of Omen releases. So everyone thought it was going to be Fulgrim before Angron.
yeah, it wouldn't be the first time, though, that Games Workshop has had to pivot or swerve at the last minute because they got one model done before they got another model done. That was the whole, like, Dark Angel and White Scars problem, is that they were like, we don't have the Dark Angels models done, but their rules are done. Or I think it was the other way around, I'm sorry. We have the Dark Angel models done, but we don't have their rules done. So what are we going to do? The White Scar rules are done. So do we have models to release with that? Absolutely not.
That explains some things.
Well, as for Heresy, I think we've said an awful lot. What about our plans for this program, gentlemen? I know that we've talked about doing a number of giveaways. We're moving forward in hopes that our listeners will get the opportunity to support us a little more directly, and that'll include some bonus benefits like abilities to chat with the staff more directly, the ability to sit in on live tapings of episodes. I think we've included that as at least a consideration for our Patreon. Where do we hope we see this show going in the next year? In the next 50 episodes, let's say.
Yeah, we've kind of kept it cagey, but I've got some physical goodies, merch, so to speak, of the show. I've also been doing some kind of behind-the-scenes products for either giveaways or kind of tool sets and things that we could look at, either branding ourselves for merch or for other things like that. So that's kind of my show inputs. Personally, show-wise, I definitely want to finish the videos that I'm doing for the Ultramarine tanks. As I push forward on those, I've kind of had to stop the Ultramarine tanks as I try to get all these, because work has obviously picked up since my hobby time slowed down a bit over the last few episodes. So I need to push the Ultramarine tanks to the side for a little bit and work specifically on the knights. But then when I pick them back up, I'll be recording every step of the process so y'all can get an idea of how I do my Ultramarines weathering and then how I do Ultramarines metals and things like that. So I want to keep pushing forward with that Spartan thing. And then assuming I don't get bitten with too many other bugs, my next army is finally going to be Sisters of Silence. I've had the model since they came out. I've got all the transport I need and everything else, so I want to get back on to kind of clearing out that hobby backlog. And if I don't do Sisters of Silence, maybe I'll pick up and do Custodes with Jacob and Jack. So I've got both those armies waiting in the wings to work on. That's pretty much it for me right now as far as things go. And obviously there's going to be Ultramarine projects in there as GW pops out new stuff for the Legions, but luckily I've already got 40 painted Assault Marines and some other stuff, so I just need to add in a few more models. And I guess I need to update my militia in there too somewhere.
I've got something that's crossed my mind. I would love the opportunity, and here's hoping that I get the chance to realistically commit to it sometime in the next 50 shows. I would love for Duncan to finish his basement gaming setup so that I could come over and spend a little time with he and Jack and maybe put a battle report on our YouTube channel.
So let's talk about that, because that is something that I have that is slowly going, and I stress the word slowly, because Jack knows the state of my basement. He's seen it. It's an abomination. It's terrible. There's boxes everywhere.
Well, I mean, you live in it, so.
Thank you so very much. But I have actually made some progress. I've got
lies and slander.
Yeah, well, I've got another bookshelf I need to get together so I can actually fill it with books at this point, so that I can then move some of these boxes that are holding books out of here.
Is that the
Once
same bookcase that's been up against the wall for the last month and a half, 2 months?
you mean this one?
Yeah, that one.
No, this is actually the hutch that goes on my desk that I do not use. The bookshelf that I'm talking about there is actually over there by the giant, large safe that may hold pew-pews.
Pew pew pew.
There.
Yeah.
Non-Volkites.
Yes, not non-Volkite pews. But once I get that bookshelf together, that's going to go over there by the window. Then the books are going in that. Yeah, over there by the same large safe again. And then I'll be able to actually clear out that entire area in front of the door once that's all done, and I'll be able to put in the first table there. Then I can clean out this area with this smaller desk that's over here that obviously the listeners can't see. And put in, or anybody here, and put in table 2. The back corner is going to actually go to have a couch put in there and be turned more into Mariah's going to start working from home a little bit on 2 days a week, I believe. And so we're going to turn more of that into her area for her office stuff, work stuff. So we'll see.
That means you also need some PCP pipes.
PCP. Not PCP.
PVC.
Not PCP.
Man, work and justice. You're giving
now
it.
Now I'm gonna have to cut all this because Jack's just like straight up pushing it.
Yeah, we don't need Duncan pushing Angel dust. So
the plastic piping.
Why do I need plastic piping, sir?
Well, if we're going to record Jacob beating you up, we need a good camera view.
Nah, that's not true. We can just use cell phone footage.
We've got hover. It's not like we don't all have hover cams at this point.
No, because I'll buy a camera for it to go above it.
Jack wants an over the table view.
That's what Jack's talking about. Okay, so actually, yes. There's only one problem with that. This is a finished basement, and I do not know where the actual joists above us are.
That's why you need to build like a little frame around it.
Like an air hockey table.
Yeah, like an air hockey table, exactly.
Jack, why don't we meet in the middle, and let's get the table in the basement first, and if we have to do a cell phone video, we do a cell phone video. But let's not like scope creep this faster than we can actually complete the project.
That's A, what I do, and B, no, do it all right now.
And C, you can use it at events. If it's PVC, that probably means you could take it apart and move it.
True.
Okay, now that'd be super cool.
Okay, so what I'll do then, this week, I will commit to getting that other bookshelf together and moved over there and try to clean that area up to be able to then figure out a table for down in here. Because I have also cleaned up the area that's actually not part of the finished basement, which is where the table I currently have is sitting. And it's not going to work. It will not work for this whatsoever. It's something that was built sometime in the 50s or 60s by someone's amateur grandfather. And I wouldn't trust putting a book on it.
I just realized there was one more personal thing I was thinking about. I've kind of started getting back into walking and doing health-related things, so I could probably keep playing this game a little longer. So that might be something we might want to look into, adding a Discord fitness channel, at least for keeping track of people doing stuff into the new
Are you
hobby
suggesting we're also going to be fitness accountability buddies? Because I'm here for that. I am down like 4 pant sizes in the last year.
The best I've been able to do is get my ring to slightly fall off a lot, so I'm not pant size down, but I'm looking forward to trying to get there.
Hey man, losses are losses. We take them where we find them.
Yeah.
I take them every game I play.
You and me both, Jack.
Mike, go ahead, Duncan. Go ahead. Do it, Duncan.
I do have some other stuff that I would like to get done in here.
Finish it, Duncan.
I do want to actually finish up getting the Blood Angels done. I will get that done eventually this year. I want to actually get the World Eaters finished, and I want to start a little bit, at least somewhat, get some of it decently ready for the Alpha Legion Army for Corrin. But we'll see. Other than the projects that I already have that I need to get worked on. That's all I got.
My plans for the rest of the year that may not come across as directly for the podcast, but it kind of is. Finish up redoing my garage. I put insulation on there so that I can actually spend time in here during the summertime when the sun's up. That way I can continue to hobby. I plan on continuing to put up YouTube videos. The trying to get through the summer months with work is the biggest thing because it's just so slammed. So hopefully in the lead up, I'm going to try to knock out a lot in a little bit of time. I'm going to do probably like a high level overview of my Imperial Fists. I'm going to do a time lapse overview of doing Dorn for Golden Demon for Adepticon next year. A lot of time lapse and a lot of this like kind of talking head video on that. I already have it mapped out in my head. It's just I need to start working on him. That way everybody can see all of my trials and tribulations with getting him done. And then there's a lot of different like paint videos. I'm going to start trying to get different stuff in here to review stuff like that. Just turn it into a full-fledged YouTube channel because I can't speak for everybody, but primarily that's where I ingest most of my content anymore. It is for podcast. It is RFI. Shout out Mike and crew there. They're literally probably the only podcast I listen to anymore that is straight a podcast. So, what about you, Jamie? What are your big plans other than Toys for Tots, more Toys for Tots, figuring out more Toys for Tots, putting up Toys for Tots, taking down Toys for Tots, shipping Toys for Tots, coming up with Toys for Tots next year. Check everything for Toys for Tots next year.
So for me, for the podcast mainly, I'm trying to endeavor having a hobby hangout. I'm going to try and do it on. I'm going to try and shoot for every Saturday night to try and do hobby hangout, just because it'll get me trying to force me to get doing stuff that even though that I usually have a really busy schedule in the fall. So it may be a little bit on the later side, but that just to get people together and doing stuff and make them accountable to their hobby. Oh,
I see what you did there.
I did. The other thing is, I've got to get my Dark Angel army playable, which I have everything I need to get at least 2 variations of the army finished. It's just putting paint on them at this point. And then, with Chris moving back into state, not too far away, Christopher Burgeon, and then I've got at least two people here that consistently play and are wanting to play in town. I've got ample opportunity to actually get games in. It's just a matter of finding time at this point. I have been squirreling away stuff to build a ZM board, and I've got STLs to print out some pretty cool additional parts to it. So that's something that my space is. I even though I'm my own hobby room, I don't really have enough room to set up a full table. But I do have enough room to set up a decent sized ZM table. So that's something I'm efforting to try and get done this year as well. And I mean, I have it. It's just a matter of putting paint on it. So. Yeah, and then also, Toys for Tots and more Toys for Tots and more Toys for Tots. The ironic thing is collecting stuff for the 2 armies this year. I've got a bunch of stuff that's left over that I pretty much already have enough stuff to do for at least one more army the next army after these. So
that's good.
Gents, it's been an
Jacob,
honor.
what about you?
Oh, I will set my goal for myself to get off the pot with Heresy. If I can't find an army I like, I need to stop trying to chase that dragon. And if I can, then dive on it and see what it's going to take to get it on the table. Tentative goal is going to be Michigan GT. We'll see if that happens, but wouldn't be the first time that I've missed that kind of a goal. Won't be the last, I'm sure. But in talking with some friends, some of which have been trying in various ways to get me a list that I want to play, especially since my Thousand Sons and Alpha Legion have bombed out kind of for me, seemingly. You guys are continuously and consistently the best group of guys who I've ever played games with, and that's what's keeping me chasing this, and trying to find a way that I can enjoy my time spent rolling dice as much as I enjoy the time spent with the community around rolling dice.
You definitely appreciate it on our end as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, when you're not on, we miss you a lot, and so we got to get you going.
I don't know. I've edited some of the podcasts where I haven't been on, and you guys have talked some pretty mad. So,
well,
but
do we have anything else that any of us want to talk about for as a whole or anything?
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Old Men Ramble and senility. In our basements and our garages.
If you guys haven't been listening to the show, I make us sound pretty good. I've been cutting the worst of our ramblings and off-tangent points, so...
I actually am subscribed to our podcast, and I listen to us. Because despite being here, I still listen to us.
See, I can't hobby at the same... Well, okay. My hobby is doing this, so most of the time my hobby backdrop is the one and only Tex of the Black Pants Legion.
Tex!
Yeah, there's a shout out to the Black Pants Legion. I listen to them as well. But I listen to us typically during my drives to and from work.
Whenever I need to get on a plane, I definitely have us and a couple other podcasts already ready to catch up on a backlog.
I can't listen to us while I drive because I'm constantly, choking up on the steering wheel going, I can't believe I missed that. I can't believe I missed that.
We don't miss a lot, or you don't miss a lot.
Yeah, you're really good about it. We definitely appreciate you. Couldn't have done it without you.
You guys have stepped up in a big way.
I think our podcast audience and friends out there all appreciate it. And I know I enjoy talking to people that listen to the podcast. And so I've gotten at Adepticon, I got a couple, oh yeah, that's that voice. So if anybody comes out to any events that we're at, I know I speak for everybody when I say, come up and say hi, shake our hand. We'll go further than that.
Yeah.
We digress, and dare I say, on that note of waxing poetic, thank you for joining us, listeners. It's been a wonderful ride, and we hope that you'll be along for much more of it. Once again, remember, leave comments on our various social feeds, Facebook, Insta, YouTube, and Discord, with the code word Beaky if you live in the continental United States, and we'll make sure that we get you listed in our giveaway for an Age of Darkness box and some fancy pants bases for it. Otherwise, and until such a time as episode 53, where we complete that giveaway, I've been Jacob, and on this show I've been joined by...
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And John.
And gentlemen, thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next time.